No LiAngelo ball on your training camp roster. Can you sort of explain why?
I don't get too caught up in the fans and whatnot, but it's a good energy out there. I will say that. Like, as soon as I come on the court, I feel energetic, ready to go my heart. So it feels cool.
I'm gonna admit, I really could never have expected this to happen. I was anticipating a significantly different result, and well, we are fortunate now that it is NBA Media Day and training camps are right around the corner to really get an inside look at how everybody feels about the situation. Real quick, before we get to the content, my Laced Up podcast is giving away a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on that channel when we hit 40,000 subscribers. I'm giving away NBA 2K22 to anyone that follows me on Instagram or Twitter. And if you could take a moment and leave a like on this video and consider subscribing, that is always appreciated. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro.
No LiAngelo ball on your training camp roster. Can you sort of explain why?
Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Man, I really got absolutely decimated this past year. Well, not even this past year, about 2 months ago, when I made a video on LiAngelo Ball's odds of making it onto an official NBA roster. I mean, an NBA training camp roster, let alone, because throughout his entire summer league stay, although it is very difficult to paint a picture of how good a player is based off of summer league, we saw good games from LiAngelo Ball, and then we saw not so good games for LiAngelo Ball. And when you put all of his statistics in a vacuum, you'll see that he averaged 9.6 points per game off of 38% shooting, attempting 9.6 field goals per game, so converting about 3.6 of those, and playing in about 17 minutes per game. His three-point percentage was fairly impressive, 35% from three, which doesn't make him necessarily a sharp shooting savant, but he's definitely above average when it comes to shooting threes. And to be honest, that has always been LiAngelo Ball's bread and butter. He's always been a tremendous shooter, but my one knock on him, and the reason why I felt like he was having so much difficulty getting into the NBA, was because that's mainly what LiAngelo Ball does, and that seems to be the only thing LiAngelo Ball does. You don't see LiAngelo Ball doing a lot of takes to the basket, and you don't see LiAngelo Ball being a tremendous defender. His body frame is a little bit awkward for his size as well. He's about 6'4". He's listed officially at 6'5", but the Ball brothers have always kind of overlisted their height, and on a good day, if he's 100% on point, his weight is about 215 pounds, anywhere from that to 230 pounds. Nevertheless, despite all of this, the Charlotte Hornets finally hit on a draft pick that could be a franchise cornerstone for this team. I mean, this is a player that could be a draw for many fans for years to come to just go in and watch LaMelo Ball play. And typically, in a scenario like this, you'll see teams doing whatever it takes to appease their franchise cornerstone. If you remember, back when the Los Angeles Lakers had Lonzo Ball as their franchise cornerstone, because, you know, back during the times where we thought that he was going to break all of Magic Johnson's records, after his rookie year, the Los Angeles Lakers brought in LiAngelo Ball for a workout, and although he didn't really make the roster, I'm sure Lonzo was greatly appreciative of the fact that the Lakers at least entertained the offer and entertained the opportunity to bring LiAngelo Ball in for a workout. And I guess the Charlotte Hornets having LiAngelo Ball on their summer league roster was the equivalent to the Lakers doing this for Lonzo Ball a couple years back, because something that is very surprising is, although LiAngelo Ball made it to the Charlotte Hornets Summer League roster, at the same time, he didn't get an invite to training camp. Now, bear in mind, a year ago, the Detroit Pistons invited LiAngelo Ball to training camp. However, although he was participating to some degree in practice drills, he wasn't necessarily included in any preseason games at all. I mean, the guy just rode the bench the whole time. Many LiAngelo Ball fans and myself were calling out the Detroit Pistons for pretty much using LiAngelo Ball as a gigantic publicity stunt without without really giving him an opportunity to succeed. Now, granted, he wasn't really in the greatest shape, but to say that we weren't all a little disappointed by the fact that he wasn't given playing time in the preseason was extremely disappointing. Now, during media day, we got a bunch of stuff going on for us, man. We saw LaMelo Ball, Gordon Hayward, and the Charlotte Hornets take the court for the very first time in a nice little training session officially. But afterwards, LaMelo Ball engaged the media about how he feels about the fact that LiAngelo Ball wasn't invited to training camp alone.
What were conversations like with LiAngelo when you saw he wasn't going to be on the training camp roster? Just kind of.
Still talks with him and stuff. Like, basketball never stops. So obviously keep working and then just wait for that call.
Were you bummed he wasn't going to make you guys training camp?
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know on that one. Just keep working.
I don't manage the roster. I'll leave that for Mitch. LiAngelo did a good job in summer league. I can say that. As a basketball coach, I thought he did a heck of a job in the time we had him here. What happens now in the future with LiAngelo, I don't have that answer, but I'll leave that for Mitch to discuss and describe as we go. But I like our roster. We got a full 20-man roster ready to go. I'll leave those internally. Mitch manages the roster. I'm comfortable with LiAngelo and how he played. I thought he got better, during that period. But, we have to make certain decisions here, and I'm comfortable with where we're at. But, I think that's more of a question for Mitch to handle and answer. I can only speak for what he did on the floor in Vegas, and I thought he performed well, and he opened eyes, and he performed at a higher level than I expected.
Now look, I'm going to give you an honest take. I'm always very honest with my takes, and sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong, but I'll typically admit to you guys when I'm wrong, and I don't think this part's going to be wrong at all. I don't blame the Charlotte Hornets for not inviting LiAngelo Ball. If you look at their entire team, they're not necessarily in a situation where they could have LiAngelo Ball just come in and take up a training camp spot. Just look at the amount of two guards, which is what I'm going to assume that LiAngelo Ball plays, because with all due respect, I think he has a great basketball IQ. He's not necessarily considered to be a point guard or a one guard at all. So just in the sense of having two guards officially on the roster alone, they have Terry Rozier coming back. They recently acquired Kelly Oubre Jr., who's also a shooting guard. They went out and drafted Scotty Lewis, who's another shooting guard. And then, of course, their first draft pick this year was James Bouknight out of Connecticut, who is a shooting guard. So when you have 4 shooting guards on your roster, I don't think you're necessarily, and that's without me mentioning players that I also consider people that could also jump in and play two guard, but I'm just going to leave that out of it. Whenever you're in a situation where you have that many shooting guards on a team, you're not going to go out and just start handing out invites to training camp all willy-nilly when you already know the odds of that player making it to your official roster are fairly slim. Now, I'm not going to lie, I am very surprised that LiAngelo Ball didn't get invited to training camp. I felt like this is a very easy way to appease your franchise cornerstone. The parallel that we typically draw is the fact that Thanasis Antetokounmpo is on the Milwaukee Bucks. Primarily, I'm assuming to appease Giannis Antetokounmpo. But the thing is, Thanasis Antetokounmpo, although he's like the 15th man on the roster and LiAngelo Ball isn't even getting an opportunity to be the 20th man on a 20-team training camp roster, Thanasis Antetokounmpo at least provides some semblance of defensive versatility to the Milwaukee Bucks. Yeah, he doesn't really play meaningful minutes at all whatsoever. I'm assuming the reason why the Bucks added him is because they're at the point where, hey, we are already a fairly well-built team. We're very competitive. We can afford to make the 15th man one of Giannis's brothers. And the Charlotte Hornets are in a completely different situation where the Hornets are still trying to be competitive at all. They're trying to at least be a play-in team, which they were able to last year, but they're trying to make the next step where they could break into the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. And I'm assuming that's the reason why LiAngelo Ball didn't get an opportunity. Now, bear in mind that LiAngelo Ball could very well have a career similar to Thanasis Antetokounmpo. Thanasis, during his first 2 years in the NBA, played in the, G League, but back then it was called the D League. Then he had an opportunity to play for the New York Knicks for a season. Afterwards, he played in Spain, then Greece for 3 years, until the Milwaukee Bucks brought him in during the 2019 to 2020 season to be their 15th man. If you look back then, Giannis Antetokounmpo was on the roster for the Milwaukee Bucks during the entirety of Thanasis Antetokounmpo's career. The reason why they didn't sign him was the Milwaukee Bucks didn't really get to a competitive point until the 2017 to 2018 season, when they finally finished 7th in the Eastern Conference, and then the 2018 to 2019 season, they were able to finish 1st in the Eastern Conference. They made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, lost to the Toronto Raptors, and at that point, I'm assuming they said, okay, we can bring in Thanasis Antetokounmpo to ride the bench. That was when Thanasis Antetokounmpo was 27 years old. So yeah, if LiAngelo Ball's gunning for a similar type of situation, I think it's very much possible if the Charlotte Hornets become one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, and their franchise cornerstone is a looming free agent, which is exactly what Giannis Antetokounmpo was. Bear in mind, the Los Angeles Lakers also signed Kostas Antetokounmpo to try to potentially get their hands on Giannis Antetokounmpo, but unfortunately it didn't work for them. LiAngelo Ball is currently 22 years old. He turns 23 on November 24th. There's plenty of time for him to be in a similar situation as Thanasis was, and I feel like if the Hornets ever get competitive, that's exactly what's going to happen. Or hell, maybe even if the Chicago Bulls ever get competitive, it may happen for him. But I think it's more likely Hornets than Bulls, in my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this. Do you think LiAngelo Ball deserved to get invited to training camp, or do you understand why he didn't get invited to training camp? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.